Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Meridian Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with the City of Meridian, the Central District Health, Crush the Curve Idaho, and numerous partner organizations, and the individuals are proud to share with you the program that we have created to assist Meridian businesses as they reopen for business. Our campaign will not only educate the businesses on the basic guidelines of reopening based on the Central District Health and CDC guidelines, but it will also allow the businesses to demonstrate to the public that they're doing so in a manner that will keep Meridian healthy and open for business. Online and speaking with us today are just a few of our partners and organizations that helped us develop this program and to support the Meridian business community, as well as businesses leading in best practices when it comes to safely reopening. Today we have joining us is Matt McDonald, Program Manager with Central District Health. We have Tina Upson, the Executive Director of Crush the Curve, Idaho. We have Steve Sidaway with Meridian Parks and Rec, and we have Garrett White with Meridian Parks and Rec. My name is Sean Evans, and I'm with the Meridian Chamber of Commerce, and just tell you a little bit about our campaign and the premise behind why we got this started. We were looking really to try and help businesses get open up early and restart our economy. We initially pursued efforts to get everyone open as soon as possible, but we also saw the bigger picture was reopening amidst the corona COVID-19 crisis was, will the public return to the stores, establishments when they reopen? We're contacted daily by business members of trying to understand the governor's plan and how it applies to their business. When can I actually open? What are the guidelines? How does my business need to follow these guidelines? While the Meridian Chamber of Commerce is not an authority on the plan and the recommended guidelines, we are able to help the Meridian businesses understand them better. The last thing we want to happen for our local businesses is that they go to the effort, expense of opening, bringing back employees, restocking their shelves, and the public, the consumers, not visit their establishments out of the fear and concern of their safety. The Central District Health and CDC have developed some guidelines to reduce your risk when out in public. And if businesses and organizations can follow these guidelines as they reopen and demonstrate to the public that they're serious about the public safety and health, then that will build consumer confidence necessary to restart our economy. The Meridian Chamber of Commerce has launched Keep Meridian Healthy and Open for Business to help our businesses build that consumer confidence. As businesses open according to the governor's 4-stage Idaho Rebounds program, we will assist Meridian businesses by conducting these industry-specific webinars that will provide information from the Central District Health on the basic guidelines for that industry. The webinars will also feature local business leaders and organizations that have taken the effort to ensure that they're reopening in a safe and responsible way. After the business opens, those that participate in the webinars will become part of our program, and they'll be provided free of charge collateral material to display in their store that recognizes them as participating in the Keep Meridian Healthy and Open for Business campaign. These materials include door stickers, includes posters like this one, 11 by 17, that kind of shows the basic things that they are doing in order to try and keep their patrons, their customers, the people that visit their establishment safe.
Sign you.
We will also be providing social media materials so that you participating in this campaign can help push this out and let the public know that you're participating, you're following the guidelines. Participating businesses will also be listed on the website and included in our marketing campaign as we go out and let the public know that you are one of the businesses that takes their safety and health very seriously. Our program goes beyond what other communities are doing by just creating a list of businesses that are complying. We're helping them understand what this means to the business and sharing best practices from other industry leaders. The guidelines out there are not a one-size-fits-all for every business. We don't know what we don't know. The industry-specific webinars seek to educate beyond a sheet of written guidelines. Educating businesses on the additional protocols they can implement for their specific type of business is where the value comes in. And that value is the safety and employee of all your customers. Now, special note, to be in compliance with the governor's 4-stage plan, businesses will only be provided the collateral materials when their business is scheduled to open according to the plan. As a follow-up opening, after you open, the participating businesses will be encouraged to answer surveys from the Meridian Chamber on how your opening is going and the sentiment from your patrons returning to the stores and your businesses. This will assist us in phase 2 of our program as we build a business revitalization team to support Meridian businesses. Be sure and look to keepmeridianhealthy.org website for more information and all of our industry-specific webinars. What you see on the screen is just this week, next week, and the week of May 18th webinars that we have scheduled and we'll be bringing to you, the public. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Matt McDonald. Matt is with Central District Health and is here to share you the guidelines and general businesses that are able to open as of today. Matt, take it away.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah, I had it all in there. Is there, but y'all can hear clearly?
A little bit of a reverb.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this back on and hang up, but I won't be able to hear you. So
it's okay.
Okay. Okay, can y'all hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to go over daycare and youth activities. They a lot of the same criteria are used. So I'm briefly going to go over some bullet points first and then discuss pools and parks. Some recommended actions for daycares would be communication between parents, children, and staff. Of course, inform and encourage preventative measures. Modify drop-off and pickup procedures. Example of this would be curbside pickups, staggering drop-off and pickup times. We're seeing a lot of centers already doing this. Temperature checks at the door. If a center or a place does not have an illness policy in place, we encourage them to have one. Y'all can still hear me, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Designate a sick room if possible. Limit group sizes to encourage physical space between children. Limit item sharing. Encourage more outside time when necessary. Increase frequency of cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, especially with high traffic areas. That includes furniture, handrails, sinks, drinking fountains, bathrooms, etc. Remove materials that are difficult to clean. That would include like porous materials and soft toys. Encourage thorough hand washing. Use respiratory etiquette. CDC recommends children 2 years or older wear a cloth face covering when out in the community. And specifically for youth activities, limit or eliminate group transportation to large vans, buses, limit carpooling. It just needs to be maybe the same family members in the same car, no sharing of cups, water bottles, temp checks again, limit or avoid sharing of equipment. And then, of course, frequently disinfect areas such as basketballs, etc., that are used a lot by other people. Again, encourage outdoor activities, stagger meal times, and just try to avoid any instance where there's a lot of people in one room at one time. Again, with pickup, drop off, you can do the staggered times as well. For pools, so there's no, right now, there's no signs that the virus spreads through the pools. As long as the chemistry is maintained in the water, it should be fine. But of course, social distancing is key there. You want to limit the amount of people in the pool and follow the CDC's guidance for cleaning and disinfecting around the pool area, the rails, etc. Same thing for parks. So frequent cleaning of the high traffic areas and bathrooms, plenty of signage in the parks areas, cleaning playground equipment, avoid touching of face, social distancing when possible. So it's kind of a lot of the same criteria match each category, but these are the things we're strongly recommending to all these facilities.
Excellent. Matt, thank you. If you could stay on the line for questions later, that would be great. All right. Well, speaking of questions, those in attendance, you can enter your questions at any time in the chat, the question window, and we will get to those questions at the end of the program. But next, I'd like to present to you Tina Upton. One of the most important factors that's been outlined all along is the importance of testing and tracing to slow the spread of the virus. Join us today to talk about the availability of testing in the Treasure Valley is Tina Upton, Executive Director of Crush the Curve. Tina? There you go, Tina.
Oh, good. Okay, awesome. So I'll just take a couple minutes. I just want to talk about testing, and there's a lot of information out there. And one of the things I want to start off first and foremost by doing is just thanking the Meridian Chamber of Commerce, really taking such a proactive and aggressive move to just really get as in front of this reopening as it can, and has provided a really great template for other communities around the state to use. So super excited to be sitting in a Meridian office building while we're working to crush the curve in Idaho, and just grateful to be have such a great Chamber of Commerce here and the good work that Sean and his team has done. But what I wanted to talk about for a minute is testing in general. And there's a lot of information out there, and all of us have seen the news about testing shortages. There isn't enough tests to be able to actually test the sick and these things. And so when I came on board at Crush the Curve Idaho, and we started, it was a month ago, it feels like years ago. It was founded by a group of Idaho CEOs from around the state that just wanted to figure out what could we do from an action item perspective to get on track. And one of the things that was very apparent was the testing kit shortage and the ability to be able to test any and everybody who believed that they had the COVID-19 virus. So we attacked that supply chain issue head on, and are happy to report that we have plenty of test kits, and anybody who is sick can be tested for COVID in the state of Idaho. We've been able to shore up hospitals and healthcare providers around the state and make sure that their quantities are such to be able to support that type of an initiative. And so just from an information perspective to this group on the call today, if somebody believes that they're sick with COVID and are having those symptoms or have been exposed to somebody who just tested positive, in the state of Idaho, long gone are the days of not being able to actually be tested for the virus and having to kind of go at that without the information that you need. I don't know if we have slides, Sean. I think that
yes,
you have a couple, but I wanted to talk. Great. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So really quick, and I don't want to take too much of everybody's time on this, but just a really quick education component here. When there's a testing shortage, right, and there are not enough test kits to test the sick, specifically this was talking about the COVID PCR test, the nasal swab. This is done either in the mid part of the nose or up really high, almost to your brain. I've had it done. And this is done in the kits themselves, the swabs and the medium to transport the swab. That was what was in shortage. And so those are no longer in shortage. Those are able to be administered. We have multiple on the Crush the Curve website. You take the assessment based on your responses, symptomatic or non-symptomatic. You're told where you can go to be tested. Symptomatic individuals, we keep segmented for obvious reasons. And you can self-schedule on the website to be able to get that testing done. Results and responses are a big deal, and we're all eagerly watching the state for their testing protocol and following suit from epidemiologists and experts on exactly what the protocols need to be if and when I feel sick or somebody in my home feels sick, and we've now had them tested. What are those self-quarantined recommendations that I follow until I get my results? And once I get my results, and based on being positive and negative, how do I understand retesting, et cetera? It's been a major focus here at Crush the Curve, and from a community messaging perspective that we're tackling to make sure everybody's really clear on steps that they need to follow for that. These tests are administered by a medical provider. Here in the Treasure Valley, we've been really fortunate to have Salter Medical come alongside of us. Yes, we could source collection kits and we can work to address supply chain issues and get past some red tape that potentially exists for others. But we would be nothing without a medical partner, and Salter in this community has shown up in such a major way. And around the state, we've been able to find other medical partners like Salter to show up and do the same thing. But we really wouldn't be able to actually test the Idahoans looking to be tested in the manner we've been able to here in the Valley without them. And so that I just want to make clear, a question that's come up on a few webinars is, who's administering the test? It is certainly not me or anybody on my staff. It is a medical provider, and in the Treasure Valley, it's Salter Medical that does that. I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. One of the major testing initiatives that we've been doing from a data collecting perspective has been the antibody test, and this has been one that comes off a little bit more controversial, if not fully controversial, and that has everything to do with information about the types. There are a lot of different types of antibody tests. The ones that we run here are a serology test. It's a blood draw. We've partnered with the University of Washington for this. They are 96.9% accurate, 100% sensitivity on the sensitivity. So it's definitely, and I might have said that wrong, and I have Amy from Salter here, so she'll help me on what I messed up on that. But the types of testing we do are FDA approved, one of the 7 that have been approved under the Emergency Act. Those are common questions that we get about it. The antibody testing itself is to check if you already had COVID. Had you already had the virus, and has your body created antibodies to show that you had already actually had the disease? We find that a lot of individuals that have come in to be tested all over the state, we have 3 mass sites. We have 3 more going live next week. But that there's a lot of information that they personally want to know. They believe they already had the virus. They were knowingly exposed to somebody who had the virus. They were unable to get active virus testing at the time based on supply chain issues. So there's a lot of peace of mind and information they're looking for. The other side of it, and we had the Boise State coaches here and team members. The other side of it that they're looking to do is to help us have more information, help the epidemiologists at the state level understand really how infected has Idaho been, if at all, and how in each county, in each region, and what should we expect coming into an actual flu season in the fall from a vulnerability perspective. One of the major things to call out here, guys, is if somebody tests positive for antibodies, meaning I had the disease before and my body's created the antibodies, our response is not that you're immune and you have some kind of a force field around you and you should now disregard social distancing or any other recommendations that are coming from the CDC in regards to this disease. But just really, it is something that helps us to understand that full immunity and that spread. And it's just something to keep in mind as we move through really the new normal, which is going to involve testing and retesting and understanding when and why at the individual level I should be tested. Amy, did you have anything that you wanted to add? I have Amy with Salter Medical here, and she's definitely going to help me on the question answer. I know it, but is there anything that you wanted to add on this? We can't hear you. Is she muted, Marlene? Okay, we can't hear Miss Amy, but I bet it would have been really great. I think I have one more slide, Sean. And this one, it has everything to do with testing protocols. Again, we're looking for leadership from the state and the CDC on this. And our intent is to be able to communicate really clearly at the individual level about when they should be tested and what test results mean and when they should be retested, when they should self-quarantine and distance at additional levels because of symptoms they have and concerns they have about COVID. And that's something that we've been investing a lot of resources into to prepare for, that will benefit all individuals, but also there's an element for anybody to consider from an employee testing perspective. So if you're somebody who has staff that work in these organizations, to consider what does it look like for our staff when they have symptoms or a family member has symptoms, what are we asking them to do on the testing level? What do we already have in place, and understand on where we're going to send them to be tested, or where we want to channel that to. And an important thing Sean brought up in my first call with him that is really important is a cost planning perspective. Part of this new normal as we go forward as a business owner or an organization would be to do some cost planning and a new budget line item that you may never have seen before that regards testing of individuals within your organization, retesting based on guidelines and information we have on how best to keep your organization a clean and a healthy one. So that's all I kind of have for my presentation. Again, really appreciate everything Meridian's doing. It's going to be very impactful for your community.
Tina, we do have Amy's audio, so if she would like to chime in.
Thanks. I'd like to reiterate our appreciation for the Chamber and thank Tina for the shout out. We are partners in the Crush the Curve effort. We are continuing to do testing, focusing on getting people back to work. And we also wanted to emphasize the importance of continuing to follow the governor's protocols, listening to the mayors in our community, our Mayor Simonson's direction, practicing social distancing and all the hygiene efforts. And we really appreciate the efforts of the daycares and the City Parks and Recreation Department to follow those protocols. We all need to continue to do that to crush the curve.
Excellent.
And I'll stay on the call
Amy.
to take more questions later.
Yes, that's what I was just getting ready to ask you. If you'd stay on for questions, we do have some that are coming in. Next, I'd like to introduce you all to Steve Sitaway with the Parks and Recreation Department here in Meridian. One of the important things about these webinars is to bring organizations, partners in to share what they're doing, what their best practices, the things that they've come up with to keep you safe. And Steve, I'd like for you to, maybe share what the City of Meridian is doing with their parks and recreation and programs. Hang on, Steve. Let me get your sound here. All right, you're self-muted. Unmute.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting these series. These sound like they'll be very useful. I love the focus on the mantra of keeping Meridian healthy and open for business. I think that those are definitely the goals that we are working towards. And one, we take the safety and health side very seriously. We also take the need and desire to reopen very seriously. So we have been working hard to create a plan that will allow us to safely reopen all of our amenities staged throughout the various stages of the governor's plan. At Meridian Parks and Recreation, we believe in recreational activities as a much needed source of rejuvenation, laughter, social interaction, exercise, and health. And we also have a responsibility to public safety. So we believe our plan does a good job of balancing our desire to see everything reopened as quickly as possible, while doing so in a measured way that allows us to monitor the curve as we move forward. Now, Sean, we put together a little graphic of our reopening plan. If you can pull that up, thank you. So this is based on everything we know today. Of course, as additional guidance and information comes out from the governor's office about the various stages, like everything else these days, it is subject to change. But with the best information we have today, these are our current plans. So with stage one, it specifically made reference to opening youth sports practices and getting youth sports and things like that reopened. So It also made reference to not yet hosting games or tournaments, but we are able to get practices out. And we have already reopened our youth sports, our ball fields for youth sports practices. We've also reopened our park restrooms this week. So if you go to a park this week, you'll find that the restrooms are open, and we have increased our cleanings of those restrooms and are now cleaning them twice daily. Probably the biggest question we currently get are, when will pickleball and playgrounds reopen? We plan to open those with the beginning of stage 2, which is currently slated for Saturday, May 16th, about 9 days from now. So we anticipate in about 9 days, those pickleball and tennis courts and playgrounds will reopen, as well as our outdoor gyms, which are with the playgrounds. And we also anticipate our farmers market season opening with social distancing protocols in place. With stage 3, this is when groups of up to 50 people become allowed in the governor's plan. So we would open shelter field and court reservations for up to 50 people during that stage. Our gatherings for adult softball and volleyball leagues are typically under that threshold. So we see being able to restart our leagues in that time. Youth sports being able to start games again also. Having the Meridian home court facility start to reopen with social distancing practices. We also think that our Meridian Community Center classes could open in stage 3. Our park ambassador programs, splash pads, and our summer camp programs also in stage 3. Stage 4 would need to wait for those large reservations that are more than 50 people, and the larger events and tournaments where social distancing practices can be observed. Those that cannot meet those social distancing practices should probably wait until after stage 4. We know that people are desiring and seeking areas to recreate during this stressful time, and we encourage people to get outdoors and recreate. We want people to practice social distancing while they're doing so. Our open spaces in the parks and our pathways have always remained open. They have never been closed, and we want people to continue using them safely. Like I mentioned, we've already reopened the ball fields and youth sports practices and our restrooms. And as we continue to reopen these stages, designed to align with the governor's plan, we look forward to having all of our park amenities reopen soon. As we reopen, we will be posting signs similar to this, which is on our restrooms, but in short, they encourage best practices, including washing hands frequently, maintaining social distance, avoiding large gatherings, consider wearing a face mask, and to stay home if you are sick. So trying to reinforce some of those messages that Central District Health mentioned. That is our current draft plan as how we intend to move forward. One of the major elements of this current phase is the youth sports, and we've got our recreation manager, Garrett White, here online to talk about that. So I'm going to turn this over to him.
Thanks, Steve. I hope everybody can hear me okay.
Yes, sir, we can. You can turn your video on as well.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, like Steve said, I'm primarily working with a lot of the youth organizations, youth club teams, practices, all that kind of stuff. A lot of them, basically what we required was, before you have a reservation with us in Meridian, is show me that you have a plan of protocols that you're going to try to set in place for your practices. A lot of these come with a lot of parents, a lot of coaches have been saying that, you know, I'm going to have my team parent do the health screening, very similar to what Matt said with Central District Health, but similar to our summer camps. When they first get there, they'd ask the questions, they do those types of things. A lot of them are obviously not sharing equipment, doing the social distancing. They're wiping down the baseballs, the volleyballs, those types of things in between practices, not sharing equipment, and they're actually trying to stay out of dugouts. So really, our fields are starting to get filled up again with youth sports. Everybody that I talk to is just grateful that you're able to get out there and play again. All of them are required to post their protocols on their website. Send me the link to their website, make sure parents are getting all that information, and just trying to do our best to meet the governor's order as well as practice that social distancing thing with our youth sports program. So with that in the youth sports world, that's kind of what I got an update for.
Okay, excellent. Garrett, thank you. With that, let's see about opening it up for questions and answers. Remember, all of our panelists, if you would unmute and you can chime in whenever if one of these questions pertains to you. I do have some questions already in the chat window. So as our participants continue to add your questions, that'd be great. First question is from Jenna Fletcher. If there is a possibility of exposure at a day camp, how long would the camp need to be closed, and do families and staff members need to quarantine, and for how long? So I guess this is asking if there is a confirmed case of exposure at a day camp. Any guidance on that, maybe from the Central District Health or from our medical professionals on how to react to something like that and who to report it to?
Amy, are you there?
Yes.
I'm there.
Amy was.
This is Amy Stahl of Seltzer Health. This one I would refer to Central District Health, but I'd be happy to investigate it further.
I mean, I can say just from what we're hearing, right, just coming down from the CDC, right, Amy, is if you have or believe to have a known exposure to somebody that has tested positive for COVID, you absolutely have the right to get yourself tested, and anybody else that's been exposed to COVID tested as well. Is that wrong of me to say that, Amy?
No, and then there's the self-quarantine aspect. Matt, can you provide additional guidance?
So yeah, if there's a confirmed case, typically the establishment will need to close for 2 to 5 days. If the anybody who's been considered high risk exposure would need to be tested and then self-quarantine for 14 days. But typically, yes, if there's a confirmed case, that the summer camp would need to be shut down, and then we'd have to look into it further from there. But yes, that's the typical. And then, of course, potential exposure 14 days from last day of contact. So everybody would have to self-quarantine. And if you're high risk, you would probably need to get tested.
Okay. Got another question here. After June 13th, will people still be subject to a 14-day quarantine if they've traveled out of state to a higher risk area? It's kind of a broader question to the governor's plan, but Matt, do you know any guidance on that after June 13th?
I couldn't tell you for sure. That's more for epidemiology department to determine. So I couldn't give you a firm answer on that, on how they're going to pursue it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see if we can try and find an answer to that and bring that up on our website. Next question from Autumn Kersey. For Parks and Rec, but also other experts, what about outdoor performances after phase 4? Are there concerns about these events? Steve?
Sorry, it took a minute to get unmuted. Well, we certainly have concerns with them. We're trying to figure out the right procedures and protocols for them. In fact, we're going to be discussing events with the directors and emergency management team later today. You know, after June 14th, Right now, our understanding is once we're through the stages that things we will be fully open, but there's a lot of unknowns at our level as what may or may not come out from the state. So we're just going to have to wait and watch what comes down from the governor's office as we get closer to stage 4 and beyond.
I can kind of piggyback off of that, Steve. I've been meeting with some of these external events that are going to be happening in Meridian Parks that happen after June 13th and so on. And basically what I've been telling them too is very similar to what Steve just said was, based on whatever the government puts out, we're going to have to follow those guidelines, obviously, or the orders that he puts forth. But in the meantime, if you do still plan on running your event, very similar to what I would do with the youth programs is you need to show me that you have a plan for social distancing, things like that. One example would be our farmers market that's getting ready to open up. They have a list of protocols that they're setting in place, everything that they're trying to avoid exchange money. So they're doing the Venmos, the PayPals, and things like that. They're having the vendors prepackage things and not handle things as much as possible. They're having extra hand washing stations throughout everything, spread apart, do those types of things to try to get things back and up and running. So for the future events that are happening, those are the kind of steps we're taking as of right now. But we're always putting that caveat in there that says, if we do take a step back, things are going to change. We're hoping we still get positive feedback from everything as it comes forward. That's kind of where we're at this point with some of those events.
Okay. The next question is from Mary Jensen. It's for Steve and Garrett. Do you have protocols for your partners providing youth activities in your parks and community centers? Are they different from that of the youth sports protocols?
So again, could you repeat the question? It's do we have protocols for others?
Do you have protocols for your partners providing youth activities in your parks and community centers, and are they different from the youth sports protocols?
So far we have, with the reopening of youth sports as the main partner-based activity that is allowed in stage 1, that's been our focus so far. We will continue to develop other protocols for partners as we continue to move forward. Garrett could probably speak the best to some of the focused protocols, but they've been borrowed most directly from the governor's office, which is where we look to for our guidance. So as the governor's office continues to put out guidance, we will adopt that here locally. Garrett, do you want to share some of the specifics?
Sure. Some of the specifics basically are really just social distance practicing. Make sure you're staying 6 feet away. Don't share equipment when it comes to the youth sports things, catcher's gear in particular, helmets, bats, all that kind of stuff. They're wiping down the baseball or softball after they're done using at the end of the practice. They're doing the health screenings, like I said before, by a parent. Some of them were saying that they wanted to do the temperature readings and things like that outdoors, ready for practice. We have found that some of those temperature readings are not too accurate because outdoor, if it's windy or if it's just a different day, the temperature readings may not, I guess, work all that well with some of the basic thermometers. And some of you with the medical background might be able to answer that question better. But some of those things that are set in place, coaches are actually doing them themselves. And what I've done is forwarded on, like Steve had said, almost cut and paste with the governor's orders, where the guidelines were, protocols were for the youth sports organizations. And I just kind of tweaked it to make sure people made sure they knew what it was, as in, youth activities and large events like tournaments, competitions, and performances are not allowed. I made sure people knew that games and scrimmages are not allowed. So I added those types of things to it just to be a little bit more clarity on it. But literally, I've cut and pasted a lot of those protocols that the governor's office put out.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Pat Baker, and this may be more towards Crush the Curve or Salts or Metal. What is the cost for a business to test employees? 7 employees is her specific comment. Tina?
Yeah, sure. So right now, the cost today, well, first of all, if somebody has insurance, They'll bill insurance. This is for the active virus. So again, remember, I'm sick or I've been exposed to somebody who's believed to have COVID or has tested positive for COVID. They're going to run that through insurance. If you did not have insurance, the cost today on that test is $95. Antibody testing, it depends on your insurance. Not all insurances are covering it. The cash price for it is $95. So worst case scenario, let's say you don't have insurance and you wanted your employees to get both tests as a baseline, you're going to be sitting right there at, $190 all in per employee. We believe and we see and we know that testing is going to get easier, faster turnaround times, become closer to home, these sorts of things. And so that's going to start to be eased up but for this unit of time, if I wanted to test all my employees before opening and execute on retesting, that's the cost that I'm looking at without insurance involved.
Okay. Any other questions? Remember, you can enter those directly in the question window and we'll ask our panelists of that. Okay. I do not see any other questions at this time. So just to remind you to visit keepmeridianhealthy.org for more information and access to these free webinars. This webinar will be posted shortly after the close of this session. But be sure and complete your survey that's emailed to you immediately following this webinar to ensure the delivery of our collateral materials. We have the posters, we have the stickers, we're ready to deliver those. So if you answer that survey, we'll schedule times to get those delivered to you so you can become part of our program. Just let me end by thanking all of our panelists from the Central District Health, from the Parks and Rec, from Crush the Curve, Idaho, and from Seltzer Medical. Thank you all for participating, and keep healthy and open for business. Thank you very much.
Hey, listen, so Matt, to ask the topic. Shoot,